Welcome back to another episode of Claim Your Creative Voice. I'm Lindsay, and this is my good friend Leslie Garbis.
Good morning.
Leslie, will you briefly tell everybody that's joining, if they're new, a little bit about you, just for those that don't know?
Oh, okay.
Because there's some cool things that you've got going on.
Yes. Well, we're pals, so we know each other that way, but we also tend to run our separate businesses from the inside out, which is not necessarily typical for what both of us do.
True.
I'm a voice teacher, but I consider myself more of an intuitive vocal coach, and frankly, lately I'm really loving vocal liberator because I feel like that's what I do. I feel like I guide people rather to free their voices, and I hold space for that and facilitate that and help invite that process. And Lindsay and I have also run a women's retreat back in October, which was basically calling in creative women, right? Yeah. Creative artists out there, and helping them connect to themselves and in sisterhood with one another, and just getting in touch with that instinctive, creative voice. And today we're going to talk about grounding,
which I'm super excited about. Leslie is also, she didn't mention, but she's a vocal professor at Belmont University here in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And you were a performer for like the better part of your professional life up until you started at Belmont.
Mm-hmm. Up until I became a mom, really.
Yeah, I was going to say she's also a mom.
Yeah, I'm a mom. And,
homeschooling mom.
Yes, like you.
Part-time
we have
homeschooler.
That. Part-time homeschoolers. Mm-hmm. We have that in common. It's the way we met.
Yep.
Yes, and starting to really step into leading Women's Circle. Mm-hmm. So Sacred Women's Circle and those experiences. Really loving that.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I was going to say too about you, is that like you're witchy AF. And so I have loved hanging out with Leslie because
I have no idea what you're talking about. As I drink out of my cauldron mud. Really? What? What?
It's so true. It's so true. But I particularly love, I grew up with siblings that were 13 and 14 when I was born, so it's easier for me to I shouldn't say it's easier, but it is easy for me to befriend people that are older than me. And this is not a talk about age, but I love being around women who have gone before me because there's so much wisdom to glean, and there's so much more grounded, and
maybe
you have a lot of wisdom to give. And even like before we started talking, she was telling me about how she harvested her Christmas tree, and she will dry the branches and bring them as like fire offerings as she lights the Palo Santo, right?
Yeah.
When she goes to people's homes, and I'm like, that's so beautiful. I want to be like that when I'm your age, And it's just, I love gleaning that kind of wisdom from women who have more life experience than me. It gives me something to 10 years down the road look forward to, okay, I can still be hot and have my sense of self and be feminine and and enjoy my life. So being around people like you is really healing and empowering for me.
Well, thank you, my love.
Yeah, and so I'm super excited to hear what you have to share about grounding today.
So we have some Palo Santo here, which is wild harvested from the ones that fall on the forest floor. This is from Peru. And it is used in clearing and helping invite in, divinity and sacred ceremony. And it's incredibly woodsy and grounding. And so, man, I got a really good light on this.
And can I ask you a quick question for those of us that are newer to witchy shit, because this is something I didn't know until you just said it right now. You said it's wild harvested.
Yeah, because Palo Santo has really been discovered by people like, say, Americans, right? And it is not of our nationality. It's not of our country. It's not indigenous.
It's not indigenous.
There we go. Took me a minute.
What's that word again?
Menopause brain.
Yeah.
So yes, we just need to be aware of how we're getting the herbs and in this case, the sticks, the wood that we are using for, our own uses, just giving a nod to good practices, good harvesting practices.
Yeah, so
that's
it's
all.
only things that have already fallen on the forest floor.
Yeah,
and this comes strictly from Peru.
It's in other places like Brazil, but
so
this
South
one,
American
this one is from Peru.
That's so cool. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, and I can't speak like a lot on Palo Santo because I've only been using it for about 2 years. I just really, really love it. Maybe about 3 years. I really love it. I think it invites grounding, which is why we just lit some as I'm about to talk about grounding with you. And it's just the wood, the earth element, is just, it's clearing our energy field and it's inviting that sort of dropped in feeling. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but it sort of means like you're dropping into your body. You're dropping into your breath. You're dropping into your presence being held by Mother Earth. And so that's kind of what grounding is. It's like I think
another way to put it too is like it gets you out of the hamster wheel of your mind.
Oh, 100%.
Dropping into the body.
100%. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so, there's a nervous system piece here as well. It's more of that rest and digest nervous system. Yeah. So, as I'm sitting here, I'm feeling myself supported by the couch underneath my butt, my tailbone, my sacral area, and my root chakra. And then I'm feeling my feet on the floor. And then my imagination can imagine how this is all supported underneath me by the earth, and by Gaia herself. And so the idea of grounding is a way to invite presence and invite getting out of that loopy mind and into our bodies, which is really where the magic happens. Yeah. And it's going to be a beautiful start as we go to talk about intention, which is where we're headed. But what I'd love to invite everyone out there to do is just a super brief, just using your beautiful imaginations, just a super brief visualization practice about grounding. And if this is something you've never done before, it's going to be brief and simple, and all you need is your imagination. And if this is something you've done before, this is going to be brief and we're not going to go into much, but it's just to invite that idea in a way that involves that, like I said, that imagination and that creativity and that visualization.
Which is important for creatives.
Exactly.
You need to be able to attach, or I guess you could say attach, but access the mind of your body. And you can't do that unless you ground.
Yes. So, what this ends up also being is I just want to give a quick nod to the fact that I think everyone knows what I mean when I say, how you can get out of the bed in the morning, totally ungrounded, wake up, start already thinking about what all you have to do, fly out of the bed and just let the day take you.
Especially if you're a parent.
There's been no grounding happening. You're already right here. You're like, you're just like, just way up here. And
I think it's happening more nowadays too because so many of us grab for our phones first thing in the morning.
Yes.
I've been so guilty of that. Just when I need to wake up because I'm like, well, if I stare at this for another 15 minutes, it will perk me up. But it's not in a way, it's like synthetic.
Yeah, and it's and there's that radiation component, there's that blue light component which flies in the face of any true restfulness or groundedness. So I recommend to everyone sleep with your phone outside of your bedroom. Yeah. Get that legitimate distance away from your phone, which feels like that nice separation, but then also energetically, like the things I just mentioned. So I will have my phone way in another room. So when I wake up, I don't think of it, at least for a while, until I'm going into a little bit of being present, a little bit of ritual or what have you, but we'll talk more about that. So let's go ahead and sit, if you can get to a comfortable seat, and you're just going to close your eyes and feel, like I said, feel your tailbone, feel your sacral, that whole sacrum area. Feel that just connected to whatever it is you're sitting on. Couch, floor, bed, whatever it may be. And if your feet are on the floor, energetically feel that attachment, that connection. And I want you to allow gravity to just have you feel sort of heavy and supported by the things that are supporting you, physically supporting your body. Deep breath. And now as we feel supported, let's invite in presence. Can you just think about that word, presence? Think about your breath dropping in lower down towards where you're feeling supported, like we talked about the tailbone area. So we're inviting in presence, we're inviting in support, comfort, grounding, connection. And I want you to turn on your grounding cord. So the grounding cord, it doesn't have to look like anything in particular. So whatever your imagination wants to come up with is fine. I would recommend it be at least as wide as like your spine, maybe a little wider. So we don't want to go too skinny because we really want to feel supported. So the grounding cord is connected to that tailbone, that sacral area, and you're going to allow it to go down beneath whatever you're sitting on, beneath the foundation of the house or the building, and down into the ground and all the way through the different layers of dirt and rock and water and organic matter, and it's going to travel down. Now this could be a beam of light. It could be whatever comes up when I say cord. It doesn't have to be a specific color. It could be black if you want it to be. It could be twisted. It could be wide open. It could be a little curvy. It just needs to have space as you send it down, down, down through all the layers, and we're heading towards the crystalline core of Gaia, of Mother Earth. We're breathing into this exercise, and as your grounding cord reaches the center, I want you to imagine whatever that center looks like. Does it look like hot molten lava? Does it look crystalline? Does it look whatever you want? It's imagination work here. Allow your grounding cord to somehow root or attach into that center. So we're going to become one. We're going to ground into that center. Now imagine that you can feel a little tug underneath your tailbone. Once you're attached, you feel truly, truly connected. Now take a couple of breaths, and on one of the next exhales, I want you to allow yourself, give yourself permission to drop everything down your grounding cord on an exhale that does not serve you. Anything that might be clinging to you, something like just, I don't know, some stress about a meeting you have later today, or something about, your kids that you got to do. Maybe they have cavities and you're just worried about that, or, whatever it is that might be making you stay in your head that's just sort of negative and loopy and is taking you out of presence. Anything that is clinging to you that does not serve your highest purpose and your highest presence, drop it down the grounding cord on an exhale. So we're releasing, and Mother Earth takes that. She wants anything we have to send her, and she's going to compost it. She's going to turn it into compost and use that energy to grow all of the beautiful things that she grows. So now, hopefully, we've invited presence. I had to go, wait, where's the camera? Okay, there it is. We have invited presence, and we've invited grounding, and hopefully you feel like, oh, okay, yep, I'm in my body. I'm in my body right now. I'm feeling my body. I'm feeling my breath. And this is a super simple grounding exercise. I'd like to add, if you want to just kind of, kick it up a few notches, earthing may or may not be something you've heard about. But you can go out into the grass or the sand or the dirt.
Oh, I'm supposed to be opening my eyes now.
Yes, you can open your eyes.
I didn't want to.
Welcome back.
I did not want to.
Welcome back.
That was good.
And so then we can pull the negative ions from Mother Earth and just really ground even more. And I believe the latest science on this is 20 minutes. The incredible healing and cellular regeneration is incredible. So this is with bare feet in the ground, and laying your whole body on the ground is supposed to be even better. Yeah. And another way to do this is hug a tree, but try to get more than just your hands on it. Try to put your whole body up against the tree. And these are
that
ways.
Is a great grounding.
Isn't
that's
so
one
nice?
Where it's I don't know. There was something about being next to a tree that you're the whole wisdom of the universe.
Yes, it's so beautiful. It feels energetically so beautiful.
Yeah.
So here's a little bit about grounding, and we hope that it is helpful.
Yes.
And I would say that
I do have one thing about earthing to add. For those of you that don't have a lot of access to outdoors, if you're in a major city, if you're in LA, if you're in New York, even in Nashville.
Good point.
there are so many cool earthing products on the market too. There's ones that you can keep
blankets
under your feet while you're at the computer. And
grounding blankets,
pillowcases, and
that's
sheet
true.
sets and things like that.
That's true.
So just an option for those of you that are not.
That are more urban.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Really good point. So, the thing is that when we go to do a project or just show up in presence for our family, for our kids, for our friends, being grounded is huge. Being grounded is huge. It takes whatever it is that you are hoping to offer, hoping to contribute to yourself or to others. It just exponentially is going to be a better experience for all.
And the last thing I want to say too is that you mentioned, like, before we're going to do a project, and I think, like, speaking to artists, speaking to creatives, it really is so fundamentally important to be grounded when you approach work. Because, sure, Jackson Pollock may have been a great example. Like, sometimes crazy can work in art too.
Sure.
But I think that ultimately, as artists, we're all here because we are channels. I was having this conversation the other day with a client, and I'm like, I think at the end of the day, artists really are channels. They might not characterize themselves as such, but you have a really interesting connection to the divine that the rest of the population doesn't. And when you are approaching a project from a place of like, oh, it has to be good, or it has to be a hit, or it has to be da-da-da-da-da.
And you're here.
You're totally here. You're cutting yourself off from the divine flow that you inhabit, that you just by virtue of the way you came into the world and how you're wired is part of your superpower, is to have that connection to some sort of divine inspiration. And so grounding is such an important exercise for creatives, because that's where you really start to get that into that flow, into that connected place, and you're creating art from like your highest self.
Right. And to add to that, if we're just in our head, we're not just a head. We're not just a head. You're disconnecting from yourself.
Yeah.
There's innate wisdom in your body.
Right.
Our bodies have innate, wisdom. And they can help lead us and help us be all of who we are. And so bringing that wholeness into whatever you do is a wonderful way to approach anything and everything, and not just have you just all up in your head all the time. Anyway, I think that's it on grounding today.
Yes.
So we wish you happy grounding, and our next ones are going to flow right out of this grounding into intention.
Cheers.
Cheers. Have a good one.